and welcome to our special on MPVs, multi-purpose vehicles. With summer holidays in full swing, don't they seem just the perfect vehicle to fill full with kids and balloons to take where your leisure interests fancy? But of course, there's all year to think about, so in this program, we'll look at the pros and cons of all the main players in this new market. But some people may disagree the category of MPVs or people movers is valid at all. We'll hear later from Mike Rutherford.
It's all a big con, I think. They're not people movers, they're not MPVs or multi-purpose vehicles, they're minibuses.
Mr. Rutherford will explain why he thinks that later on. But for now, sit back and enjoy the program. First, Nicky Fox has some fun with a V-Class, some masking tape and some bemused punters.
Is the Renault Espace, the top seller in its class, and the vehicle which first defined the people mover in Britain, so now it's getting just a little long in the tooth. So the latest bandwagon. To join the bandwagon, well, here's a couple of clues. It's one of the most prestigious of marques and certainly the oldest. Daimler-Benz started making cars a century ago and they became Mercedes-Benz, famous for their high-quality, luxurious, speedy and very expensive cars. Now they've turned to making MPVs, so this is a Merc as well. Surprised? I know a man who was. So what would you guess this was?
Well, looking at it, I would say a Ford.
Maybe like a Plymouth Voyager.
Probably a Nissan.
Ford.
What would you say, first glance?
Ford.
Mercedes.
Okay, so it caught a few people out. But is that badge any guarantee that the V-Class is up to the job? Will it become the luxury limo of people carriers? Under the bonnet is a petrol-injected 2.3-litre engine, which isn't big for a vehicle this size, but the brake servo is massive, which hints at its origins as a load-toting van. The sides are very high, which is accentuated by the total lack of curves. Now that's almost political incorrectness in today's curvy car market. Round at the back, this sill is nice and low to the ground, which is great for loading and unloading. Makes a good spot for a tailgate picnic too. And speaking of which, good head clearance. The interior space is really flexible because all the seats are removable. However, the snag is that each of them weighs 40 kilos, which is about 100 weight in old money, so I'm not even going to try and demonstrate taking them right out. Even doing this, I feel I need a bit of a rest afterwards. Let someone else drive for a change. Flip out one or both tables and it becomes a playroom or an office. Mercedes equates these plush individual seats to business class on a 747, and with a base price of nearly £22,000, business class families are obviously the target market. Large ones too. You can opt for a seventh seat here, but unfortunately they all have to be heaved out and put back in to turn them round. They don't swivel. Still, it is the first MPV to offer a rear-facing ride, which means that I Spy is no longer your only relief from backseat bickering. And with the fashion trim level, you even get a choice of in-car games, as well as fatter tyres, colour-coordinated trim, back-of-seat coat hangers, and even a brolly with its own bracket. The base model's called the Trend, and this is the top-of-the-range Ambiente, which means alloy wheels, leather interior, an under-seat safe, and a drinks cooler which I haven't been able to locate. I can only assume it isn't included on models they're going to lend to journalists. Can't imagine why. So what's it like up front? Well, it's comfy and it's high up, which I like, though this semi-horizontal wheel gives rather a bus-like feeling. This is Mercedes' first front-wheel drive. It's agile with a nice self-levelling suspension, but it is a bit underpowered. And I'm not looking for a hefty 0 to 60, but I think Mercedes should bring out their 2.8-litre V6 as soon as possible. So it's got some good plus points, but some worrying negatives as well. And in a competitive market, everything does need to be right, especially now the Americans are coming onto the scene with their world-beating Chrysler minivan. Van, now there's a word the PR men hate us to use, but if we're to buy the V-Class for all the qualities associated with the badge, then Mercedes has to banish all thoughts that this is just a van in tarty trousers. Unconvinced? Well, if you're still solvent once the family's fled, you can always slide back into what may remain most people's idea of what Mercedes really means. As for the V-Class, only time and the order books will tell.
I don't know if you're old enough to remember the late 60s and 70s when if you bought a little portable cassette tape recorder with, say, the Pi logo on, you'd go down the road and find virtually exactly the same tape recorder, but with the Philips badge on, but with a slightly different shaped play button or something. Well, it was an early example of two companies getting together, doing a deal, and marketing virtually the same product at different markets. And the same thing has happened in MPV world. Now, this MPV is the result of joint cooperation between two massive European car manufacturers, from Italy, the Fiat Group, and from France, PSA. And that means that if you walk into your Citroen dealership, you'll find this one, the Citroen Synergy. If you go into your Fiat dealership, they'll offer you the Fiat Ulysses. And there's also a Lancia version of this called the Lancia Z. And of course, Peugeot, they offer this as the 806. But what I'm driving today is the Citroen Synergy, just because I like to say it. When it comes to multi-badging, of course, the Volkswagen Chiron is built in the same place in Portugal as the Seat Alhambra, which is also built in the same place as the Ford Galaxy, that G word, the Galaxy. You'll probably say, what's he talking about this for? This came out before the Ford Galaxy. Haven't I read that the Galaxy variant MPV is the class-leading MPV? It drives like a car. In fact, it's better all round. Well, not necessarily. Let me show you why you shouldn't dismiss this model out of hand. Open up the door to some MPVs, you get a sort of artificial plastic feel to the thing. Not so with this. This exudes quality. As a estate agent would say, it's very well appointed. Good quality upholstery, a nice airy feeling to the whole thing, especially with the two sunroofs. The one at the front has got two cute little blinds. This middle one is absolutely huge, and it opens with an electric version here on the SX, so you can put your heads out and pretend you're on safari, I suppose. Not many zebras or giraffes around here. And you'll notice the seats at the front, they do swivel around, the captain's chair as they call them. Hi, Captain. And even the driver's chair turns around. Now, some MPVs don't allow the driver's chair to turn around. It was a bit of a shame, really, because the driver wants to join in the picnic or the conference in that lay-by. But they think, no, if we let the driver's chair turn around, maybe the driver would dare to drive facing backwards. An MPV or people carrier is designed to carry people, so the only way to truly check one out is to fill it with passengers and find out their comments. Check out all the storage areas and see if they satisfy your family's needs. Children particularly love MPVs because they're high up and they get a great view out of the huge windows, as well as the opportunity to have virtually a different seat for every day of the holiday. But before you buy one of these vehicles, you have to weigh up the benefits of an idyllic family holiday vehicle against the disadvantages of use the rest of the year. Do you really want a vehicle so big for solo commuting? Fuel consumption is obviously poorer in a heavier car, but the Synergy isn't actually that bad. We managed about 30-32 to the gallon on the petrol SX model. You'll find you'll drive economically anyway. This is not a performance car, but a vehicle that is at its best, driven sedately. Now, if you've never driven anything larger than the average saloon before, driving one of these MPVs does take a bit of getting used to. After all, this Synergy is about 8 inches wider than the Citroen Xantia. If you are in a tight squeeze, however, there is a panic button over here. Push this, the wing mirrors go in, give you an extra foot or so of space, and then after you're through that tight squeeze, push the button again, and they flip back to the preset position. But, you know, sat back in the chair, the steering wheel is fine, just as in a normal car, but everything else is so far away. You can't quite reach the tissue box. You can't even adjust the mirror safely once you're sat back in your chair, and the radio seems far away. And that's why all MPVs should have some sort of remote control system for the radio. This Citroen has the system where they've got the buttons on the steering wheel, which is fine. It's certainly better than reaching over here, but I don't like this system, simply because you hold your steering wheel at 10-2. Where are your thumbs? Exactly, the buttons are down here. So you find yourself taking a hand off the wheel and stabbing around for the correct button, which may not even be down here. If you're going around a roundabout, they could be up here somewhere. I think a far better option is the one used on my trusty Peugeot, where instead of having buttons on the wheel, you actually have a separate stalk on the right-hand side. So it doesn't matter where your hands are on the wheel, your hands never leave the wheel, because your right hand simply pushes down on this stalk for volume or pushes away for changing channel. A far safer option. The Synergy from some angles may look like it has the aerodynamics of a bread van, but if you don't mind it looking squarish, the ride you'll discover is extremely comfortable with low road noise and surprisingly low wind noise as well, under 65. The 2-litre injection petrol engine in this SX model delivers 123 brake horsepower, which is adequate even when fully laden, but don't expect to be first off from the lights. If you've never experienced MPV motoring before, you'll be thrilled by the huge panoramic windscreen and the raised driving position. The gear stick is on the dash and handbrake is by the door to give an uncluttered floor space. By the way, an automatic box is not available on any version of this MPV. And with these beautifully comfortable seats and the little touches we come to expect, like cup and bottle holders and sunglasses compartment, the Citroen Synergy looks like an excellent, practical, multi-purpose vehicle. But at the back end of the vehicle, this is where the story starts to go horribly wrong, and you realise that the Galaxy's extra 7 inches of actual length of vehicle does come in extremely handy. Let's assume we've gone to the airport, you've picked up 6 friends off their flight, and they're very happy in their nice, comfortable seats inside. What do you do with their luggage? Suitcase number 1. Fantastic. 5 other suitcases? Yes. Well, this is it. It's a people mover, it's not a people and luggage mover. Let me quote you from Citroen's own brochure. The possibilities are boundless. Synergy can comfortably carry up to 7 passengers and all their luggage or leisure equipment. All their luggage or leisure equipment. Excuse me, but am I missing something here? We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's a poor translation from the French. Because there are so many MPVs on the market, you'll find that the manufacturers try to out-gimmick each other, and you'll find features that you won't actually need. For example, on the Synergy, the back 2 windows open, little electric buttons. The kids love playing with them at the back. They don't actually let that much air in. Also, the front sunroof also opens. Again, it's not very effective as a way of ventilation. In fact, I recommend don't open any windows at all, because you're going to go for the automatic aircon option, which is the most amazing and quiet and efficient aircon system I've seen for ages, actually. Set your desired temperature, switch to auto, and just let it do its stuff. It doesn't just cool the front passengers, but also the back as well, through clever ducts it has through armrests and underneath the floor and everything like that. It's very efficient. In fact, you know, in computer rooms where they have an aircon unit, there's always some wag who puts up a notice saying, "Please close the door. My air conditioning unit cannot cool the universe." Well, actually, I think this one probably could. So, what do you think about this Citroen Synergy? I personally like it very much indeed. I like the driving position. I like the gear stick being here, clearing the floor. The interior is great, and it's quiet and refined at speeds. I like it better than the Galaxy for motorway driving. However, what this doesn't have is handling. If you want handling, then the Galaxy 2.3 engine is fantastic for that, or the Volkswagen Chiron VR6. But this is fine. You're not going to go for sporting rides with your family in your back, are you? But if you do have your family with you, every seat is full. What do you do with the luggage? This is the problem shared with all MPVs like this. You could put a pod on the roof, but that's going to cut down your miles per gallon considerably. Are you going to send your luggage on ahead? It's very impractical. So if you are going to need an MPV that has people and space for luggage, you really only have 2 choices in this country. There's the Ford Tourneo, which is based on the Ford Transit. It's actually slightly smaller in length than the Galaxy. It's not as flashy. It is based on the Transit, but it is more practical. It shares the dash and the gearbox of the Mondeo. Another huge hauler you ought to have a look at is the Chrysler Grand Voyager. This is the Voyager, the version with the long wheelbase, plenty of space in the back for all your luggage. This is America's favourite for a family carry-all that's not quite in RV territory. It does cost about £25,000 in this country, but you may think it's worth it for the space you get. But if your heart is set on owning a Citroen Synergy, or maybe one of the variants from Peugeot, Fiat, or for our continental viewers Lancia, all hope is not lost. Considering this is a joint French-Italian venture, here's a great British compromise. Look, there's plenty of space for luggage if you take a seat out. So you've got enough space for 5 people, plus the driver, and plenty of luggage. Granny didn't want to come anyway.
Of course, every manufacturer seems to be jumping onto the people mover bandwagon at the moment. And Renault and Chrysler both claim that they're the first. And you've been testing out the all-new Renault Espace, haven't you, Mike? What do you think of it?
Oh, excuse me, I nearly fell asleep. As soon as I hear that word Espace, I want to doze off.
Now, we know you don't like people movers, do you?
I don't like them because...
Why don't you like them?
Well, because it's all a big con, I think. They're not people movers. They're not MPVs or multi-purpose vehicles. They're minibuses.
Now, come on, Mike, because that's not what the manufacturers would have us believe. You know, they tell us that it's a totally new concept for the 90s, don't they?
Well, they would, wouldn't they? Because they're trying to sell cars that people generally don't want. And who are these people, the few people that are buying them?
Oh, there's a lot of them on the roads. Come on, there's a lot of people like them.
Well, there are not a lot of them, that's the point. If you're a sad man like me and you sit up all night studying the sales figures for various types of cars, you'll see that they sell in very, very small numbers. And whenever I see, you know, if I see a woman driving one, I think, poor old cow, look, she's just dropped the old man off at the station. She's just off for a coffee morning with the girls. And it's, you know, she might as well have married woman written down the side of the car. When I see a bloke in them, I mean, it's even worse because it's obviously he's escaped from the missus for a couple of hours and he's an equally sad Now, the point is that these cars are really created for a market that doesn't really exist. People who want a car that can accommodate 4, 5, 6 children are not the people who can afford a £25,000 car or thereabouts. Right. People who want to transport 4 or 5 children and the car is jam-packed with kids, then have another problem. Where do you put all the luggage that goes with those 4 or 5 kids, or all the bits?
Well, you put the luggage in the back and the kids on the roof rack.
Well, I guess that's the only way to do it. Because I think the only sensible way to really do it is to fill the car up with people, be they kids or adults, then send another car ahead with all your luggage. Because there's no way you can carry the luggage. That means they just don't work.
Right,
as
well,
far as
you've been driving two of them.
I'm
You've been looking at the Renault Espace and the Vauxhall Cintra. So come on, Espace first. Being, you know, objective about this now, put aside your personal feelings for a minute. What do you think of the Espace?
Well, I'll tell you what, Renault, and I'm very grateful to you, Renault, took us out to the States, to Las Vegas, I think. They dropped us in the middle of the desert and they said, drive these things. Drive at 60 miles an hour in a straight line, the new Renault Espace. I mean, talk about meaningless exercise. It didn't tell you anything about the car. All it really taught you was how to fall asleep for 50 miles at a time and still somehow remain on the road. I was bored to tears. It said nothing about the car. In fact, I find it quite staggering that even though we were driving in a straight line at such low speeds, the diesel versions of these Renault Espaces were still managed to chuck out a load of black smoke. They said because of the poor quality diesel fuel available to them in the States. I hope that's the reason. Great interior this car's got. Really fantastic interior.
It's incredibly functional, well thought out, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, again, you see, I'm not sure that you need I'm not joking. They say you could, if I had a briefcase, if I'd ever owned a briefcase, I would have tried this out. They say you can put your briefcase in the hole in the dashboard at the front. I can honestly say, I talk to a lot of people, and I can honestly say I've never met anybody who says to me, you know what those bloody car manufacturers should do? They should put a bloody hole in the front so I can stick my briefcase in the dashboard. It's not something that people want.
Whoever thought of that was the guy who decided that you could have business meetings in the back of a people mover by turning the chairs around as well. Because if you were to have a business meeting with some important clients, would you have it in the back of your MPV?
I think not. And again, you've fallen into the trap of calling it an MPV. It's a minibus. And no, you wouldn't have a meeting in the back.
Slap my hand.
I think I should. And let me tell you another thing about this Renault Espace. It's got this great CD player, and it does sound quite good, although not the best, I've got to say. The sound system in the Volvo C70 is far, far better quality than the sound system in the Espace. But the beauty of the sound system in the Espace is that it's all separated. components scattered all around the car. So that means that unless the thief wants to actually dismantle the car, he can't nick the stereo. Of course, that might mean that the thief might just take the lot, you know, the car, the stereo, everything with him and dismantle it later. But putting that to one side for a minute, guess what it's got in there? I actually wanted to change the CD, and I'm sure this wouldn't happen if you got used to the car, but I couldn't change it, and my co-driver couldn't either. So we actually resorted to using a remote control unit. We had to pick up this thing the size of a mobile phone and actually point it at the dashboard on the car to change the CD. Now, just what you want in a car, isn't it? Just the thing you want. Another piece of hardware in the car. You've got your mobile phone, you've got your remote controls, you've got your laptop computer, you've got your fax, you've got your CDs, and now they give us something else to worry about. I mean, can we just return to the days where there are simple CD systems or stereo systems in cars, and we just do away with all this technology for the sake of technology?
Let's calm you down now. Moving away, America's obviously...
I get emotive about
It was a
these things.
stressful time for you, obviously. You've driven the Espace on British roads since then, so what was it like? How did it handle?
Well, after I was given a good kicking by the people of Renault, they invited me back and asked me
He's about to get another good kicking after this, isn't he?
They asked me to drive it in Brittain, and they said, well, maybe you'd like it in different circumstances, more typical circumstances.
What, corners you mean? And
well, yeah, I mean, I actually drove one day in a straight line, and honestly, I was driving for a long, long time, you know, with my knees steering the car. Not that I recommend anybody does that, because it was just a ridiculous exercise. Okay. In Britain, different story.
Roundabouts, roads,
yeah, and it's
motorways.
a great car. I still don't like this driving position. A lot of people say the great thing about these vans with windows is that you can actually you're sort of raised from you're off the ground and you're looking down on the traffic ahead. Well, so you are in a 40-ton truck, you know, or in a double-decker bus. You know, I like to actually feel at one with the car, and I don't like being perched up like this. You're still in this strange driving position. They do not drive like cars. They're too big, they're difficult to park. When you've got lots of people on board, difficult to store things, as I said earlier. And it would take a lot of convincing for me to even think about going out and running one of these cars. And I speak as somebody who is the ideal candidate. Renault have said that the people who are going to buy the Renault Espace are people on the sort of income that I've got, fortunes, and the sort of age that I am.
Very, very old.
Thank you very much. Couple of kids, which I've got, and you know, occasionally I go out with other friends and their kids. So quite often I need to be in a position where 8 of us are going somewhere.
Man, yeah, I'm he's trying to say. Yeah, he's a family man.
I'm a boring family man, but I don't need to drive a van that says boring family man. I'd rather drive something a little bit more exciting. And quite frankly, I'd rather say to one of my mates or the wife or my 8-year-old kid, here's the keys, we'll see you there. These things are overpriced, and to me they are the greatest con in the motor industry of the 90s, because what they're really doing is creating a market that doesn't exist. Doesn't mean to say that technically they're not very clever and they're not very good cars and very able cars, but in terms of actually doing the job, they fail miserably, because like I said, put all the people on board, you've got no luggage. Put all your luggage on board, you've got no room for people. And what's more, when you do put all the luggage on board, you're not hiding the luggage. Luggage should be put in the boot away from thieves. It shouldn't be on display through these windows.
Well, Mike, thank you for joining us today. And you've totally alienated half the designers that are around the world at the moment. They all thought they'd come up with a great idea, and you've set them straight. And anyone that drives an MPV, well, listen, this is what Mr. Rutherford thinks.
Well, I tell you, I wouldn't even have one for free. Well, maybe.
And there's absolutely no chance now, is there? Thanks, Mike.
This is the Griffith Observatory in the hills over Hollywood. Now, when you come to an observatory, you want to look at the stars. Well, when Chrysler looked at their stars about 10 or 12 years ago, they were almost out of business. So they brought a new executive over to run the company from Ford. His name was Lee Iacocca. He had an idea for a vehicle called a minivan. Now, in Europe, these are called MPVs, like the Renault Espace, the Toyota Previa, but this is the big one in America. Now, nobody's ever been accused of falling in love with a minivan. They're not very sexy, they're fairly boring, but they do their job well. The Chrysler does it as well as just about any vehicle in the world. I can't imagine anyone 20 or 30 or 50 years from now collecting these and restoring them to show at the Concorde. It's a good thing this Chrysler minivan has analog brakes because I did not want to end up in downtown Los Angeles. Now, why is this minivan so popular? They sell 500,000 of them a year in America. One of the main reasons is not just this sliding door. A lot of minivans have sliding doors, but follow me. Let me show you something very special about this Chrysler. You come through the back, and there is, voila, another sliding door on the other side. It makes it so easy to get in and out of the vehicle, load the kids, load the groceries. If you need extra room in the back, all the seats in the back are easily removed. They're a little bit heavier than I would like, and they go in a little bit more difficultly than they come out, but they're easy to get out. Now take a look at the dashboard. There's a couple of extra special gadgets up here we want to show you. First, right here, there's a power outlet for your cell phone or your laptop computer. We used to call it a cigarette lighter, but those are politically incorrect these days in the United States. You have separate controls for the heat and the air conditioner for the driver's side and the passenger side. This feature has saved several marriages that I know of. And finally, the radio. It has a control for quadraphonic sound. If you remember quadraphonic from the 70s, well, that never took off, but Chrysler bought about 5 million of these radios. Literally, it's in all their cars and trucks. Now, the price of a minivan, a Chrysler minivan, is anywhere from about $18,000 to $32,000, or about 12 to 20,000 pounds. Whether you're in Beverly Hills or even in Wilmslow, you won't get a lot of high-speed performance from the Chrysler minivan, but you'll get great fuel mileage performance. In fact, 25 miles per gallon, which is very impressive for a vehicle of this size and weight. And that size and weight helps in security and safety. You've got airbags right here for the driver, and there's one on the passenger side as well. The anti-lock brakes, all-wheel drive is available. And as far as security goes, you sit way up high. You get a great view of the road around you. And comfort and luxury, well, this is as comfortable as any limousine I've ever been in. And a lot of these attributes sound like they may be very attractive to women, to the females in the audience, and there's a reason for that. Women in America are responsible for making 80% of the car purchase decisions. I think it's the same way in England, but you just haven't admitted it as yet.
So you have £20,000 to £25,000 to spend on a new vehicle, and you fancy the idea of a multi-purpose vehicle. You've taken a good look around and see what's available on the market. Your wife likes the idea of one, the kids like the idea of one, but how practical are these cars in terms of general life? Well, we've got two others today, the world-acclaimed Ford Galaxy and the all-new Vauxhall Cintra, and we're going to take a close look and drive them and see what they're really like. First of all, let's take a close look at the Galaxy. So first impressions once you get inside the Ford Galaxy are fairly good. The seats feel okay, but we believe that on a long journey they're not tremendously comfortable. You get these nice armrests, which I'm particularly fond of, and the finish is okay. The main worry about the Galaxy though is the expanse of plastic. It's just a huge area of plastic, and you can't see the bonnet, and the front of the car seems a long way away, and that can be very difficult if you're trying to park in a tight parking situation. You also get rather dinky little cup holders, although how long those cup holders will actually last when the kids get about them is another matter. You get air conditioning as well. Now, one thing about the Galaxy is that you can get a very good driving position due to the adjustable steering wheel, which comes forward and up and down, so you can find that perfect position. And that's one feature that some of the MPVs don't have on. The Cintra we've got here today doesn't have an adjustable steering wheel, neither does the Mercedes V-Class. Now, one of the things that concerns us on Men and Motors are the controls on the Ford Galaxy. They're rather tacky, they're very short and stubby, and when you're actually driving, we've had difficulty in finding the right controls. We ended up changing the CD when we wanted to flash headlights and vice versa, silly little things like that. This one's cruise control and also the indicators. This one is the radio down here, and you get the windscreen wipers on the right hand side, but they're just that little bit small. If you've only got short fingers and you're in a driving position, they're not terribly easy to use. One of the other main gripes we've found about the Galaxy when you're out driving on the motorways particularly is the visibility through the back. In the driving seat you're looking through your rear view mirror and all you can see practically is headrests. You get the 3 in the middle, the 2 at the back, and very little visibility through the back seat, particularly if there are other cars low down at normal level cars coming up behind you. You're probably going to have a lot of difficulty in seeing those. So that is a real problem in the Galaxy. The headrests get in the way an awful lot. This particular Galaxy model is the 2.3, which is a brand new engine, and this is the Gear X specification. Now in the back there are 3 seats for the passengers. We've got 2 in the back here as well, and there's a reasonable amount of leg room. Passengers get these nice little airline style picnic trays as well to put their drinks on as well. But not a lot of areas to put storage. Bins are sadly lacking. Things like the Scenic have nice bins under the seats and under the floor as well. I mean, this is a high floored car, but there seems to be a real lack of all-round storage areas in this Galaxy. Now the Ford Galaxy is one of the nicer styled MPVs around. You get a nice roof spoiler, nice little bit of chrome as well from Ford. And in the back, with the 2 seats that we have fitted here, luggage space is not huge. We've got all our junk in here. Storage bins in the rear, well, we've got a CD changer fitted to this model, and that's in there. But over the other side, where you thought there might be a little area for storage, there is nothing, which is rather a mystery. We don't quite understand why there isn't a small bin fitted there for you to put odds and ends in. The rear of the Galaxy, as I mentioned, for luggage is not huge. When you compare it against the Grand Voyager from Chrysler, you're not going to get a lot of suitcases in the back of this when you have all the seats fitted. So that's a downside on these particular MPVs. Now, although we've been critical of 1 or 2 aspects of the Ford Galaxy, we are very impressed overall by the car, and of course the criticisms that we made of it do apply to the Seat Alhambra and the Volkswagen Charan. But the one area where the Ford scores over the Seat and the Volkswagen is under the bonnet, because this has the new 2.3 litre power plant, and it's a cracker. So out on the road is one area where the Ford Galaxy really scores over probably most of the other MPVs. The handling and ride is tremendously good. It corners remarkably well for what is essentially a very big car. Ford have sold over 16,000 Galaxies since its introduction back in 1995, and that's made it Britain's best-selling MPV, setting new standards in design, ride and handling. And this new 2.3 litre engine delivers a really exciting driving experience thanks to its class-leading torque, which is delivered consistently across a wide range. The 2.3 litre engine produces 145 brake horsepower and comes with either a 5-speed manual or adaptive 4-speed automatic gearbox, and it's available in 3 different models: the GLX, the highly specified Gear and the Gear X models. So this is Vauxhall's rather late entry into the MPV market, the all-new Cintra, with that distinctive V on the front of its grille, so you can immediately tell it is a Vauxhall. It has a rather bland style to it. I've lived with this vehicle for the past week or so now, and my impressions are fairly okay. There's certainly some gripes about the driving position, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. But it comes with a choice of 2 engines. You get a 2.2 litre 5-speed manual, which is this car, or you can go for the top-of-the-range CDX, which comes with a 3 litre V6. The car is actually built in America, in Doraville, in Georgia, and it's been designed by the Americans, but they were given the brief to make sure it had certain European styles to it, and I think probably GM have come up with that. And in America you can get this badged as a Pontiac or as an Oldsmobile. So let's take a look at the driving position, which is one of my main problems with this car. Now this is one of the main areas that I've had a problem with, the driving position of the Cintra. Now you can change the seat into, well, pretty much any different way, up and down, forwards and backwards, and plenty of rake and adjustment there. But the problem I had particularly is with the pedals and the accelerator pedal in mainly. I found it very difficult to get a comfortable driving position with the foot there, and after a long journey back from Luton last week, my ankle and my knee were aching rather badly after that long drive, so I have had a problem trying to get a comfortable driving position. But inside it's fairly comfortable. Again, you get these nice armrests, everything is nicely laid out, there's a good stereo in it, and you can see the readout of the stereo there. There's a temperature and a time on that kind of central control panel. Now, standard equipment on the Cintra is very high, as you would expect. This is the CD model, the 2.2 litre engine. You get ABS brakes as standard, you get air conditioning, you get a quality stereo system. Some other rather odd little areas, like this thing here, don't quite know what it's for. Maybe it's for sunglasses, little extra storage bin up there. There's a good sized glove box as well. And of course the usual cup holders for the old bottled water and cans of drink, and an extra power cord as well for plugging your mobile phone or any other accessory you might want to put into there. One of the nice aspects on the Cintra is sliding doors, which you get both sides on this car, which you don't get of course on the Galaxy. You get sliding doors as well on some of the other MPVs, the Citroen, the Fiat and the Peugeot have them as standard. In the back, legroom is not tremendously good for passengers. It's okay for the kids, but taking adults, there's not a huge amount of support, and no support for the thighs there either. These seats are right the way back. As I mentioned before, you don't get any cup holders, there are no picnic trays in the back either. But the seats are fairly comfortable all in all, and I'm sure the kids will be very happy in the back of one of these. But hang on a minute, there are even more seats in the back, and let's take a look at those. Getting into the rear of the Cintra is fairly easy. There's a nice little clip there which is easy to use, and climbing in and out of the rear is quite comfortable really. This model is fitted with the extra 2 seats. You can have a row of seats which would perhaps take passengers up to a total of 8 in this particular model. You also get the cup holders. There are other little cubby holes, lights in the back as well. Not a lot of room in the rear, but okay for the kids, and that's the main point of these MPVs. You know, you're not going to carry about 8 fully grown adults in the back of these things. The kids will be fine in the back, and they do love it in the back of these MPVs. Now, General Motors engineers were told to come up with an MPV that really drives like a car. And I have to say, it does drive like a car when you're out on the road. If it wasn't for the uncomfortable driving position that I've found, it would be a very nice car to drive. There's plenty of power there, particularly from the 2.2 litre 139 brake horsepower car. This is the CD. Or of course you can go for the 3 litre V6 with 198 brake horsepower. And the size of the Cintra is particularly good. It's 5 inches shorter than an Omega Saloon. Well, we've had time to assess these MPVs from Ford and from Vauxhall, and what are our final impressions? Well, we like the Cintra. It's a very solid car. Inside there's plenty of space to take all the family and the luggage. The driving position is not tremendously good. We're not keen on that. But for style, that probably goes to the Galaxy, and particularly if you're going to get a Galaxy, make sure you get this new 2.3 litre engine, because that's an absolute cracker. But make sure, if you are going to buy a multi-purpose vehicle, to take your time and decide carefully that you buy the right one. There are lots of MPVs on the market from all the main manufacturers now. And if you want to buy an MPV, why not go into the showroom of the one you really fancy and say, give me one to drive for the weekend so I can test it out and see what it's really like with the kids and luggage, and go away for the weekend in it and see how it feels. One thing we would say about the MPVs is make sure that you really want one. They're a great idea in the summer when you're going off on holiday somewhere and you're getting all the kids in the back and the dog and all the luggage and all that kind of paraphernalia, and you really need one. But in the middle of winter, when there's only you driving it and the rest of the seats are vacant, is it a wise idea? Is it a wise buy? Make sure you've thought that through thoroughly before you buy an MPV.
This is a happy family, but there's sadness behind the smiles. They're doomed to spend every day of their lives taken to wooded areas where they're forced to eat al fresco on blankets strewn on the earth, and all because Toyota called this MPV the Picnic. But it's not a bad vehicle, as we'll find out in a minute. But first, let's check out the Picnic's older and bigger brother, the Previa.
There's 3 models in the range, starting with the GS through to the GX. The first one is standard manual gearbox with automatic offered on the rest of the range. Across the range, the standard specification is twin airbags, a full alarm system. The other 2 models are 7 seats, with the one I'm sitting in is a 7-seater. The first impressions they find with the Previa is the huge amount of room that you see inside the vehicle, along with a class-leading boot. With Previa, with the engine under the middle, so therefore the people carrying area starts right at the front of the vehicle, hence you get the large boot at the back end. The two back seats which I'm sitting on can also fold up onto the side, which then gives you even more load carrying space should you want to carry a very large item. Right, so let's go and have a look inside the Toyota Picnic and see what this vehicle has to offer. It's a very similar layout to the Previa. As you can see inside the vehicle, it is more like a car. It drives more like a car, and it's a little bit less spacious inside than the Previa, but a lot of the customers prefer this sort of size vehicle. It's not so daunting for them, but it still has all the benefits of being able to carry the extra people. Layouts are very similar to the Previa. The specifications again are very similar, with the safety on the twin airbags and the ABS brakes from the GL and upwards. As you can see, even in the Picnic there's plenty of room, as the cameraman is sitting right in the back of the vehicle now. There's actually 17 different seating configurations with the Picnic. The back seats will completely come out and you can actually leave them at home should you want to create a boot.
Every industry has its own Aunt Sally, and it seems that the poor old Nissan Serena isn't much loved by many motoring journalists in this country. But, well, you've read the articles and so have I, but let's start from first principles. Let's look at the good and then maybe look at the not so good facets of the Nissan Serena. And if you've never been in one before, there's a bit of a surprise for you. So let's wipe the slate clean and start afresh. I hate the colour. Thank goodness they make the Nissan Serena in normal colours as well. Okay, so what's the first thing we notice? Acres of leg space. Have you noticed that? Look, you could have a flipping football match in here. The headroom is marvellous, lovely, light, airy, spacious, and what's more, it's easy to get into the back seats. A simple flip and a twist, and they've got not bad leg room as well. But the main reason why people go for a Nissan Serena is when they look up the prices. Now here's our list of the base model prices of brand new MPVs available in the UK now. Number one, maybe surprisingly for you, the Honda Shuttle. We think it's rather expensive for what it is, but if you like Hondas, it's a fine vehicle, $23,445. Underneath that, the new Mercedes V-Class, the big Toyota Previa, the new Renault Espace, followed by the Cintra, the Voyager, not the Grand Voyager, remember these are the base models at $18,250. And then the Ford Galaxy, followed by the Seat Alhambra, cheaper than the Galaxy, but you get aircon as standard. Underneath that, the other variant from Portugal, the VW Charan. Then we have the three variants from Citroen, Peugeot and Fiat, followed by the Mitsubishi Space Wagon, the smaller offering from Toyota, the Picnic, and there at the bottom at number 15, the Nissan Serena. Engines made in Sunderland, the body assembled in Spain, but is it made in heaven for you? Well, wait till you open the driver's door. And maybe a bit of a shock for you if you haven't seen the Serena before. Basically quite a big step up, which is fine because you want to be up high in an MPV, but look where the driver's seat is. It's sitting on top of a huge lump. What's all this about? You're sitting on top of the engine. Well, there are advantages to that. I'll talk about that in a second, but the problem is if you're sat in here and you've got kind of long legs, the thing is when you're resting at lights or you want to move your legs around on a long journey, you find the actual lump of the engine rubbing against the back of your legs here. It's all rather claustrophobic. The strange thing is, if the engine is underneath you here, what's at the front there? Ah, the spare wheel and the battery and the oil dipstick or whatever. Why can't the spare wheel go underneath the back? Because the exhaust and the cat's there. But there are good reasons to put that engine in midship positioning. Nose heaviness is reduced and allows for a more sophisticated front suspension system that really does give a good ride, although bouncy at times, excellent handling and sharp steering. Wind noise, although it looks boxy, is surprisingly low, and its official drag coefficient of 0.35 is similar to many saloons. Well, once you get used to sitting on top of the engine in the Nissan Serena, you are up high and the visibility is excellent. It's a good all-round airy feel. You know exactly where you are. You've got these huge wing mirrors, I mean really huge. And actually the view out the back isn't bad at all. This particular model has excellent air conditioning, and the rear seat passengers also have a fan as well, which is a great idea. There are little cubby holes and cup holders all over the place, and the seats can be folded flat or put to the sides to make more space at the back, to make it a load-carrying MPV. But apart from that, you can't actually remove the seats without a lot of fuss, and you can't turn the front ones round like you can in some MPVs. To sum up then, the Nissan Serena is a very able and extremely practical MPV if you don't want a luxurious long-distance cruiser, and you don't need to muck about with swivelling captain's chairs and the like. Nissan have cleverly priced it between the family estates and the other MPVs. It's at its best on school runs or taking the lads to a soccer match with a crate or two in the back. It's not the biggest, but it might be the best for you. Give the Serena a test drive and make up your own mind. Now, we didn't include the next offering in this list you saw before because we didn't think you'd believe us. The Daihatsu Hi-Jet MPV is only £9,000 on the road. It's not huge or luxurious, but maybe Mike Rutherford is right. If all you need is a basic urban people carrier, save your cash and go for something like this.
The vehicle, as you can see, is a very small, user-friendly vehicle, and with 6 seats, it certainly shows a thing or two to the larger MPVs. This particular vehicle is aimed actually at the urban person with the size and everything and the practicality. Do you need a bigger vehicle than this? It's very, very practical for its size. They're very useful for everything from taking the children to school to families who want a second vehicle. It's anybody, in fact, really, because we tend to look at it more as a car actually rather than an MPV. It drives extremely well. The 1 litre petrol engine is very, very economical, and certainly around town the steering, everything very light, very, very easy to drive. I think the vast majority of other manufacturers have actually tended to concentrate on much larger vehicles and assume people actually need the size to 6-seater, a big vehicle. You don't actually need that. One of the key things about the vehicle, and certainly one of the most practical points, is actually the ease of access. And you can see here from these twin side loading doors, which offer a very, very great ease of access. And certainly there's plenty of room in there.
So, have we confused you or enlightened you with our MPV special? 2 main things came out of our research. If you're hunting for the right one for you, think practically about its uses throughout the year. And on the back of that, don't go shopping on your own. If you want the vehicle to carry your family, insist on long test drives with them. Passengers often discover good and bad points that you as a driver might not notice. 4 Wheels will be back to its full magazine format next week. See you then.